Hello and welcome to the program, The Love of People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. This is a program that bridges the gap between the government and the people. And here we talk about social political programs and trends here in Nigeria. My name is Rachel David White, and today I'm being joined by Xavier Robert. Welcome, Xavier.
Hi, Rachel. Great to be back on the show. Great week.
Okay. All right, so today we'll take a look at some reports that are making the round here in Nigeria. The strike action is looming all over again, while the Federal Workers Forum, FWF, on Sunday cautioned the federal government against ploy to frustrate the two-day warning strike by the organized labor unions in the country. Well, Minister of Labor and Employment Simon Lalong, who stated this during an ongoing press briefing, explained that he had not met with the labor leaders because he didn't get adequate brief from relevant departments before that time. Well, Lalong appealed to the leadership of both the TUC, that's the Trade Union Congress, and that of the NLC, the Nigeria Labour Congress, to prevail on all its affiliate unions to shelve their scheduled two-day and planned total shutdown in 21 days' time.
Well, senior civil servants, umbrella organization, the Trade Union Congress, TUC, had said they will not join the strike called by the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC. The NLC reportedly mobilizing for a two-day warning strike for tomorrow and Wednesday to protest, as we know, against the federal government's delay in implementing measures to cushion the hardship that resulted from fuel subsidy removal. The NLC President Joe Ajaero had on Friday said the decision was taken at its NEC meeting with the possibility of a total shutdown
after 14 days. Well, the TUC decided as it's at its National Executive Committee NEC meeting on Sunday that it would continue with dialogue with the government to ease the pain of petrol subsidy removal. So I'm trying to think if they cannot agree on something. Definitely it simply means, oh, Xavier, whatever you're doing, I'm not joining you, so you are on your own. The house is not in order.
Well, it's TUC, it's NLC, so I think they're different bodies, so they are given to have their different stance on issues.
Well, they are all labor unions.
Labor unions, but then they have their own, I feel they have their own diverse ways of looking at the issues. But whatever it is, I feel at the end of the day, it still boils down to a decision that they need to reach as regards whether the federal government has done enough to ensure that the fuel subsidy effects is being cushioned, or what are the federal government really doing to ensure that the citizens
do not feel the
really
pains, the hardship.
Impacts of.
But trust me, Xavier, the impact has been felt.
Yes, it's been felt. So that's exactly what they're trying to do. NLC is saying they're going for a two-day warning strike, and then afterwards, if something is not done after 14 days,
they're going to 21 total shutdown.
So let's see how this plays out. TUC says they would rather stick to the negotiations with the federal government, but they are still saying that after 14 days, if something is not done, so it still boils down to the decision of a strike action at the end of the day.
Okay, when we come back from, when we get our guests back, I would love to talk about, always having strike actions loom, and then the next thing we hear that federal government have called few members or the top leaders of the labor unions, and then they come back to say, because just I think about a month or less than a month ago, this same thing happened, and then we heard the indoor closed door meetings, and then they came out and everything was fine, and here we're seeing the same thing again.
Sorry for another day.
Okay. All right, so let's head to another report we'll be looking at today. President Bola Tinubu is currently having a crucial meeting at the presidential villa with top military officials and intelligence agencies for a comprehensive security briefing, where the gathering seeks to address pressing national security concerns before the president departs for the upcoming G20 summit in India. And key figures in attendance include The meeting should have been concluded by now. It included the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, Chief of Air Staff, the Inspector General of Police, and the heads of various intelligence agencies as well.
We understand that presidential sources say they will discuss a range of security issues, including the current state of the nation, counter-terrorism efforts, border security, and recent developments in various regions. I believe that the recent developments in various regions would include the coup.
Of course, and that is one of the major things we'll be talking about today. Well, while specific details of the meeting remain classified, it is understood that President Tinubu will emphasize the need for effective coordination and intelligence sharing among different security agencies.
Now, the president is scheduled to depart for the G20 summit in India shortly, where he will engage with other world leaders to strengthen diplomatic ties, foster economic cooperation, and promote global security.
Talking about the reason, major reason for that meeting, Komi, do you think the president would or should be or is afraid of anything? Maybe you're leaving your house and then you come back and things are no longer in order.
Well, I feel the president Tinubu is just being the president. He's trying to put his house in order, ensure that when he comes back,
everything will be in order.
It's still the way he left them. Yeah.
Okay. Let's try to see if we can connect with our guest who is trying to also connect to us. I think he's having some difficulties. Okay, he's already here. Hello, good evening, Comrade Abios. Okay, just in case, I think he's trying to hear us. We're talking to Comrade Abios, and of course, he is joining us from Jigawa State. And then we are going to actually x-ray some of the topics with him today, and one of those is about the coups going on in West African region, and of course is Nigeria really safe? That's the big question, because trust me, if there is fire around a house, maybe the house should be worried.
Countries are having issues as regards to coup, then definitely it means Nigeria needs to sit up and put its house in order. Should that be the reason
our president is trying to call, when you're leaving the house and then you have children and you say, I'm traveling, as I'm traveling, do not find trouble, and all of that. Okay, so we're trying to connect to Comrade Abba Abios Ronnie, and he's a community activist and is joining us from Ronnie local government area in Jigawa State. So let's try to see if we can actually sort out the connection issues. I think he's here with us. Good evening and welcome to the show, Comrade. I think we're still having some issues. Okay, as soon as he can join us, then we'll quickly go into the main gist for today so we can have enough time to actually x-ray those topics. Now, going back to the first topic, which is the first thing we're going to look at today, that's the looming strike action. And then the question that keeps hanging in my mind now, there is this school of thought from different people that strike action actually favors some of the principal officers in the labor unions now, and then they feel when they threaten, the government calls them, and of course maybe to some extent favor or settles them, and then they come out to tell the people to just keep holding on. Because I'd like to refer us back to different strike actions that has happened, and of course part of their demands is to review the 30,000 naira minimum wage and make it 200,000 naira, and I'm trying to look at how feasible that is. I mean, in our nation today, do you see that happening? The 30,000 naira minimum wage is even hard in some states to actually implement, and we're looking at 200,000 naira.
Well, Rachel, when it comes
it's a new administration. I know what you want to say.
Apart from just the fact that it's a new administration, we understand what has been the norm when it comes to NLC, TUC, and all the labor unions that we have in Nigeria. When they say we're going for this particular strike, we want to make sure that we press home our demands. The federal government must do this, must address this. And just like he said, they go into these closed door meetings, come out, and then 1 week, 2 weeks down the line, we no longer hear that topic anymore. It becomes a dead end. And then you wonder what happened during the closed door meetings, where they know specific information, or were they not able to address the issues that were on ground? Was it that they compromised at some point and towed the path of the federal government and then never really considered the effects of what they were trying to address? Were they not able to reach a decision? What really happens that when NLC, when TUC, and other labor unions that we have come up to say, we need this to be addressed, and it never turns out to be the case? For instance, look at the current one we're fighting for right now, which is the effects of the fuel subsidy removal, Rachel. Now, why is it that it is taking so long for the implementation of the palliative measures, which the federal government has said, okay, it has disbursed 2 billion naira to states? Why is it that we're having so much hiccups in terms of the disbursement of these funds?
So, you're talking about 2 billion naira, and then recall that in the release, when the statement was first made, the federal government said it was going to release 5 billion naira.
Absolutely.
With some other palliative measures to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. And then we're hearing that some states, not all, got 2 billion naira. What happens to the remaining states? And so far, we're yet to get different details on how it is actually being disbursed in different states as well.
And then we were also hearing that the FCT recently also raised dust as regards the fact that they were not captured in terms of the 2 billion naira that has already been disbursed, and then they sought to be included, which of course the president obliged. But then apart from that, we're not privy to the actual disbursement methods, what has been put in place by states to ensure that these palliatives that they've put on ground reaches the poorest of the poor as they have captured them to be. What are the apart from the temporary, I keep hearing them say we are putting these measures in place to address the temporary needs of the poorest of the poor.
So you see, that still boils down to the question I keep asking now: temporary needs. What happens
about the long
after
term?
that? Yeah, what happens after this money, which we don't know how much is going to be per house, per household?
Yes.
What happens to when they finish it and then there's nothing to actually
fall back on?
There are no refineries in place to actually help us refine locally and all of that.
Then you see, we've had a lot of analysts, economists speaking on this issue that the federal government actually had no business with removing the petrol subsidy when they had nothing tangible on ground to ensure that it addresses the ripple effects that it's going to bring. Imagine us now, a lot of people are having it tough to get by the day. People are suffering on a daily basis because of the sudden implementation. And then they're telling us that it had to be done either now or never. And then there were no plans on ground to ensure that whatever effects this would bring, which would definitely be negative, it is not so biting to the people.
Of course.
To the people that we are supposed to allow breathe, according to the words of our president.
Okay, Xavier, so let's just quickly go on a break and then we'll come right back, and then by then our guests should be able to join us at that time. So we'll quickly go on a short break. We'll come right back. The show continues, so do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome back. It's still the program, The Love of People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. Welcome back, Xavier.
Yes, thank you, Rachel.
All right, so before we went on a break, we were talking about the strike action. Of course, the NLC has given the federal government a warning against the strike action that they are about to embark on. It's going to be, according to them, a 2-day warning strike. And of course, if their terms and conditions are not met or their demands are not met, then they will have to, after 14 days, they will have to go on a 21-day total shutdown. And if that happens, of course, you know what this means for Nigeria. Well, I've also had reports that the TUC, that's the Trade Union Congress, have said they may not join the NLC, that they will continue to negotiate with the federal government to see if the federal government can actually meet their demands. And of course, also know that this strike action is a normal way in which the labor unions actually take their demands to the government and see if it actually going to work out for them. But this time around, let's watch out and see what comes out of it. We've been trying to connect to our guests, so let's just stay hopeful that network is going to allow that. And away from that, we want to take a look at the meeting between the president and the service chiefs. Of course, that meeting was necessary in order to put things in order, or put the house in order, before the president embarks on the G20 summit that is going on soon in India. So, Xavier, before we went on that break, we talked about the reason for that meeting, and of course, it looks like the president. The question I asked is: the president worried that he may actually come back and see the house not in order? And of course, recently there has been some development, I would say coup development in other regions of African regions, different states. On July 26th, we had coup in Niger, and of course, just Wednesday last week, which was Gabon. The 30th day, yes, we had a coup in Gabon. That's after Burkina Faso and Mali had faced their own coup. Today we've had reports that the military guard that took over has been sworn in as the new president. Well, we don't have much details on that yet, but this actually calls for a serious concern, like our president says. Of course, if this is actually happening around Nigeria, of course, these countries are around Nigeria, all members of the ECOWAS state, then there is a reason for Nigeria to worry, because it looks like they really have to put their houses in order. And then when the government is not able to meet the demands of the people, what happens? Military take over, and we hear of coup here and there. And before now, last week, on Thursday, there was a charge was being sent to the Nigerian military team, of course, warning anybody who is not ready to stay, or would I say, loyal and faithful to the president, to immediately resign. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's only natural that we get to have such statements emanating and rearing up their heads because of, as you know, in light of the recent happenings